everyone, and welcome to another episode of Geonet Property and Finance Group podcast. I'm Elissa Doyle, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Miss Sarah-Jane Picton-King. She joined us on her Bali holiday, and she is from womenspropertyinvestment.com.au. And she's joining us to speak specifically about that subject, which is very relatable to me and many of our clients, women in property investments. So that's our subject for today. But first, let's get to know Sarah-Jane. Hello, Sarah-Jane.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you today. It's really great to sit down and have a chat.
Yeah, well, so let's start with your story. How did you get into property investments? And tell our viewers.
Sure thing. Well, it actually starts with little old 18-year-old SJ. And my first ever job was for the local real estate agency in the town where I'm from, which is McLaren Vale in South Australia. It's a wine region within South Australia. So as a little 18-year-old, I asked my boss, who was a very successful woman in business, in real estate at the time, I asked her, so what's your number one piece of advice for me starting out in life? And her advice was, always buy, Sarah-Jane, never ever sell. Always buy, never ever sell. Property will always go up in time. And I just thought that was really quite interesting, considering she was a real estate agent and her livelihood was generating revenue from the commission of the selling of property, and her number one frank, honest advice was never sell. So I started my career in real estate, worked residential real estate for a period of time, off the plan real estate, selling apartments in metro locations, and also house and land packages as well. My career took me on a journey into the commercial real estate world, where I've worked for a number of the big shopping centre management companies such as the Westfields and the Colonial First State Global Asset Management companies in Australia, the large ones. So that was, a period of my career for over a decade that I thoroughly enjoyed working in the property space. And it led me to, I've always had a passion to keep up with the latest trends in marketing and what's been going on. And it really led me to develop skills and then ultimately open my own marketing agency offering digital marketing services, but for women business owners. So I've always had this affinity to help women in my career. So through my digital marketing agency, helping women, and then from that an offshoot has now become Women's Property Investment.com.au, helping women build wealth of their own through investing in property.
And that's where we are today. So when we talk about women in property investment, CoreLogic, we always go back to data and GPFG. CoreLogic said about 10 years ago, only 20% of investors were women. And now here we are 10 years later, and that number's up to 29, almost 30% of property investors are women. So it is definitely a growing trend, one that you clearly know extremely well. So let's talk about womenspropertyinvestment.com.au. Tell me how you started this company specifically.
Yeah, sure. And why? Why?
Yeah, how and why?
The why really comes down to myself working with a financial coach. I engaged a person called Scott Bradley from Asset 101, who has been incredibly helpful to help me make sure that every dollar of income that I have coming in to my world that is put to work in the best possible way that it can, and ultimately to generate a certain net wealth position for retirement, for the later years of my life. So through working with Scott and our financial coach, and so I highly recommend like any woman does in their life if they're serious about building wealth. So through working with Scott, we plugged my exact position and numbers and goals and what I wanted to achieve into the software that he has. And very clearly, I could see a roadmap of when I needed to purchase the next property asset, and then what particular type of property asset would help me to achieve the ultimate goal of having a certain amount of income, a certain amount of revenue coming in the later years of my life. Through working with my financial coach, Scott, he put an opportunity of investing in a cash flow positive asset through Geonet, actually, into my plan, and it made complete sense for me in terms of the goals of how much income I want to generate through the rest of my retirement years. So it was actually a 2-bedroom loft in your Barabam project, which I was very, very excited about. So actually seeing the effect of what a cash flow positive asset such as a Barabam could do for my situation and my portfolio, and seeing that in front of me graphed out, it made complete sense. It was a no-brainer. And this particular opportunity in my portfolio, it was an asset that will return well over 10%, so potentially 15, 20, 25%. It's an absolute no-brainer when you see that modeled out for you to have a cash flow positive asset such as that in your portfolio. It makes complete sense. So because of that whole positive experience that I've been through as an investor myself, investing into Bali through Geonet, I am passionate about taking the opportunity to build wealth through other women with women's property investment.com.au.
Okay, so when you're through womenspropertyinvestment.com.au, what are the women that you are working with? It must run the gamut between women who are just seasoned investors or early. But you tell me, who's your audience and who are your customers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we typically work with 3 types of scenarios or 3 types of women clients. So number 1 is that successful women business owner and savvy investor looking for a high cash flow investment, a great return investment, a no-brainer. Put a good deal in front of a savvy woman and she'll snap it up. And the second group of women that we work with, you've come to Bali before on holiday. You've always dreamt of having a holiday home here in Bali, but it just seems such an unattainable goal. Well, it's actually not. Through the property stock that Geonet offer and this concept of fractional investing, where if you don't have the resources to purchase at 100% level of a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom villa, for instance, if you don't have the resources to buy in at 100%, you can buy in as low as 10% on some of the projects. So 10%, 25%, 50%, 75%. So it really makes it a lot more obtainable. But the best thing is, when you're not staying in your holiday home yourself, you can have the opportunity to generate extremely strong income for yourself and your family when you're not staying there yourself. So that's our number 2 audience. And there's also a concept for our Australian clients that have this opportunity to open what's called a self-managed super fund. And that's where if you don't have the resources or the ability to invest outside of what we call superannuation, you can open a self-managed super fund and have your super fund purchase a high cash flow, high return asset, such as a holiday home in Bali in your self-managed super fund. And it makes a lot lot of sense for tax reasons, but also like, ability to have that lump sum of cash working a lot harder through for you. So that's another group of client that we look after. We can connect you with all the right qualified people that you need to speak to make sure that those opportunities do make sense for you. And that's another really great area to explore for it to not be a dream to have a holiday home in Bali, that it actually is obtainable thanks to fractional ownership and the possibility of purchasing with a self-managed super fund. And the number 3 audience of ours, which is like a real fulfilling audience to serve, is the older woman in Australia that perhaps is in their 50s and 60s, and through separation, divorce, personal circumstances, finds themselves still renting in those later years of their life as they're entering retirement. Now, this group of women are actually the next group in this Australian society that are pegged to be of disadvantage. They've perhaps taken a chunk of time out of the workforce to raise kids, and they may not have the largest super funds to retire on when that time comes for them, and they're still renting. So investing in an opportunity such as a property in Bali with a self-managed super fund would actually provide them some revenue that would pay their rent well into retirement as they don't own their own home in Australia. So it makes a lot of sense for me. Otherwise, this group of women would blow through whatever super that they do have very, very quickly, and then they've literally got the pension to rely on. And that really means if you're having to pay your rent out of a pension as well, that really is the reality of living in poverty in the later years of your life. So instead, to have the opportunity to put whatever super that these women do have to work by buying into a Bali asset, they're going to have revenue to be able to pay rent in the later years of their life living in Australia. And I just think that's just a wonderful solution for a sticky situation to be in the later years of your life. So they're the 3 groups of women that we serve at Women's Property Investment.
Okay. And why is it that you've turned more, I think you've kind of have answered this question, but when you're speaking to the women, why have you turned their attention towards Bali rather than purchasing in Australia?
Oh, that's a very good question. For the returns that you can get for the investment that you're putting in, it goes a lot further in a market such as Bali. So as an example, say $500,000 invested in a property in Bali to get the same amount of income per annum, which is 6 figures. To get the same amount of income per annum in Australia, you would have to purchase a property, like $1.8 million worth of property in Australia versus $500,000 in Bali. It clearly stacks up. And I went in Australia buying that like high equity opportunity type of property. It's most likely negatively geared, and you're most likely only going to generate 3 to 4% return, of maybe 6% if you're, it's an extremely good opportunity. Where you're comparing that to returns of well over 10%, so the 15%, 20%, 25%, it's a complete no-brainer. A stronger investment, investing in the flourishing tourism market, which is Bali.
Yeah, and we definitely see those numbers. We were talking about cash flow, and I forgot to mention where we are on site at this beautiful property today. We're at the Louvre, and we are at one of our favorite spots, Monsieur Spoon. So we definitely always have that very much Bali feel, and we're in Brawa, right in the thick of the high tourist numbers and the high cash flow. So this property itself will be open in November. So our investors who are into this property will be seeing their cash flow for the high holiday season next year. But the property that you've invested in Barabin, in the heart of SMSF, that one is probably, that is definitely one of our most popular investments and investment models, because the tourism rate and the tourism numbers and the high occupancy of SMSF, that will just bring you the returns for as soon as it's open in 2025 for, the next however long the lease is, 2030, even longer years to come. So yeah, we're very excited for our investors who have gotten into these units and these opportunities, because they only focus on the high cash flow. And we have investors from Australia who have come to us and say, my portfolio is only earning me 3%, 4%. And then if they're trying to borrow, the cash rate is above 6%. So they're already losing money on their mortgages. So
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
no,
At the moment in Australia, in the Australian climate, when you compare it to the wonderful returns that are possible over here at Bali, and tourists from around the world flock to Bali, and quality accommodation, quality hospitality venues that are in such huge demand. I don't think that would ever not be the case. So quality Bali, high demand.
To wrap this up, let's think to 18-year-old Sarah-Jane. What's the piece of advice you would give her now?
Well, I think my grand piece of advice that I'd like to pass on to any other woman interested in investing in property is diversify as early as you can. Don't just stick to what you know. Don't just stick to buying in the one market or the type of property, like just units, just houses, or just in your own backyard. Don't just stick to what you know. Diversify a lot earlier. And yes, it's important to have equity chess pieces, I call them, but it's also equally important to have cash cow pieces that I call them. So the opportunity to invest in a different market such as Bali that is a cash cow is a no-brainer to add to your portfolio to give you diversity. So my one piece of advice to women investors is diversify early as you can, as early as you can.
All right.
Don't wait.
All right. Well, there you have it. Don't wait. So thank you so much, Sarah-Jane. We'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your Bali holiday. I know you're leaving in just a few days, so please enjoy and come back and see us soon.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah-Jane. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.